Well, good afternoon, folks. Here we are on another edition of An Hour with Bob. And if you know me for any time, you know that I'm a baseball fan. I know it's not the number one sport anymore, but to me it is. Baseball is a sport. It's 162 games. All these other sports, they play 80 games, or they play 18 games in football, 19 games in football. If you had some of them make the playoffs, it's 17-game schedule, but they might play more than that. But baseball is a 162-game season, and it's a grueling season. And baseball, unlike these other sports, it's an individual game. When you're up to bat, it's you against the pitcher. When you're a position player, balls hit to you, it's you against the ball. So it's you're out there all the time. So I consider baseball to be, well, like I told you, it's my favorite sport. So I run into this guy. Actually, I got a phone call from this guy. No knowledge of him, never heard of him before, didn't know him. We ended up on the phone for like an hour and 30 minutes, something like that, talking baseball. First thing he said to me was, "Are you a baseball fan?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "What team?" And I think he was shocked by my answer, and we'll find out. I told him, he said he thought Red Sox. I said, "Nope." Yankees? Nope. I said, "I'm a Baltimore Oriole fan." And I think he was a little taken by that. But we end up with the conversation that lasted that long, and we'll get to that. But anyway, with me today is a great guy. I ended up spending some time with him. I went down to a museum this past weekend in Connecticut, in Waterbury, Connecticut, where he donated his entire collection of Ted Williams memorabilia, which was worth, I don't know how much money, but a lot of money. And he just gave it to them. He donated it to the museum down there. And I thought that he deserves a time on An Hour with Bob. And with me today is Rick FLYHAWK Koch. How you doing, Rick?
Bob, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I've been a fan of yours for 32 years.
Wow.
Always watch your episodes on TV.
I know. You told me that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Your personality comes out, your friendliness. I love your shows. It gives me an ease to relax when I watch Bob's Adventures or An Hour with Bob.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, is that what prompted you to call me? How did that come about? How did it come about that you called me?
Well, I remember you over the years going on an adventure.
Right.
So I called you up. I said, "Bob, I have an adventure for you." You said, "Why? What's going on?" I said, "I donated my entire collection of Ted Williams to the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury, Connecticut. And I would like you to film it, to come with us,
right,
to experience it, and I want to share it with your audience."
And we did.
We had a great time.
We went down there.
We had 119 people show up for the event, and Bob's Big Adventure was there, and here we are today.
A beautiful museum, by the way, and a nice town, a nice quaint town.
This Mattituck Museum was established in 1877. 3 years ago, they moved into their 5-story, $10 million building. They get 40,000 visitors every year. Every year, all the grammar schools tour the museum. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to donate to the Mattituck Museum.
Right.
Kids in some high school and college players
don't even know who Ted Williams
is
right?
Anymore.
Don't even know who he is.
Right.
The greatest hitter in Red Sox history, right?
Not only was he the greatest hitter, he served in World War II.
Right.
He served 39 combat missions in Korea and an F-9 F-Pan fighter jet. And I brought that jet into my parking lot in 2017.
Yep, we're going to show that picture.
We're going to get to that later on.
Yep. What prompted you to bring the jet down to? By the way, you have we're going to show the picture right now of your location down in Westerly, down in Mesquamaket Beach. You have a parking lot, plus you had a pitching in a batting cage, or batting cages, not one, several, or six batting cages?
Yes, I came to Mesquamaket Beach. I bought my business in 1979. I've been here 46 years. My first business was the batting cages. Then in
Hot dogs, too. Then you went to hot dogs.
Oh, I'll get to there. Then it was in 1980, the individual that ran the hot dog stand next to me didn't want to do it that year. So I told the owner, I'll take it over, and I called it FLYHAWK Dugout.
Right.
We had hot dogs, hamburgers, 7 pinball machines, and my top seller was fried dough. Now, people fried dough have it with cinnamon or sugar,
Sure.
but not the Italians.
No.
I'm from Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel Feast celebrates with spaghetti sauce and grated cheese, and that was
It's almost like a pizza. It's almost like a pizza.
Right.
A little different. No, you're from where?
Waterbury, Connecticut, but I went to Mount Carmel Grammar School.
Okay.
Back in Waterbury, the Italians always went to one section. The Irish went to Blessed Sacrament Church, etc. So my mother was Italian.
Right.
My father was Polish. So we ended up in Tom Plott section, which Mount Carmel Church was there, and Mount Carmel School in Waterbury.
Wow. So you got your hot dog stand. You got
The batting cages.
Then
the third year, the owner of the parking lot next to me said they wanted to retire. I said, Frank, and Frank happened to be the captain of the Providence College basketball team back in 1948. His name was Frank Francis Pellegrino.
Oh, I know the name.
The center. He said he wanted to retire to go on the golf course. I said, Frank, I want to take this parking lot. So for years, I ran the batting cages, the hot dog stand, and the parking lot.
Wow. And we got a picture of the parking lot right here, as a matter of fact. Oh, the whole thing, your whole complex.
Yeah, the parking lot is to the left, the batting cages are in the middle, and their white building is the hot dog stand.
The FLYHAWK Empire, the FLYHAWK Empire, right?
Yep, you could say that. I came August 18th, 1978. The original owner of the batting cages said he wanted to sell it. He said, Rick, you're a single guy. Do you want to buy it? I said, Nate, I want to buy it. January 19th, 1979, we're in the lawyer's office signing the contract.
Right.
Nate Felicetti held the mortgage at 8%. He was postmaster at the time of Westerly. Nate Felicetti lived to over 100 years old.
Wow.
And he invited me to his birthday party, and we had a great celebration, and I think he passed like a year after that.
Speaking of 100 years old, isn't your mother approaching 100?
In the video, you'll see pictures. My mother came to the celebration. She's 106 months now.
Wow. That's unbelievable. And she's got all her faculties, too. She's a sharp woman.
Sharp. Just to give you an example, a couple of months ago, I went to Key West. I told my mother remembered the trip her and my father took together. She remembered the bridge, the water on both sides.
Right.
Sharp. She still remembered that trip, and that trip was probably taken in 1963.
What? No kidding.
She drove down with my father.
Now, what prompted you to come to Rhode Island in the first place? Was it the batting cages, or?
My father worked in the post office. He had Sundays and Mondays off.
Yep.
Every Sunday, we would go to Hammonasset Beach in Connecticut.
Yep.
One year, 1966, my father says, let's go to Mystic, and then we're going to go to Mesquamaket Beach. So we stayed in Mystic at the hotel.
Mystic, Connecticut. Yep.
We went to Mesquamaket Beach, and Bob, I can remember that day. It rained that day. We were so disappointed, but me and my two brothers didn't come out of the water. It's the first time we saw waves. We were body surfing all day. Hammonasset doesn't have waves.
Really?
It's on the Long Island
Sound.
Sound.
Yeah, you got the Long Island Sound, which Mesquamaket misses.
Right. So we told our parents, Ma, we never want to go back to Hammonasset again. So we always came to Mesquamaket. As soon as I got my driver's license, when I was 16, back in 1968, every weekend I would come to Mesquamaket Beach.
Wow. And that's your connection to?
That's my, yes.
That's how you made your connection to Mesquamaket.
Because I would go to the batting cages, drop $20, $30, and the owner and I became friends. And that's when he told me he wanted to sell it. So I seized the opportunity that was presented to me. So I was lucky at that time.
How did you get the nickname FLYHAWK?
Okay, my high school baseball coach was William Pop Doyle. You know how you do the write-ups in the newspaper about the upcoming season? He said, Rick, FLYHAWK Koch Sr. is back. He's a great defensive outfielder, diving for the balls. It's going to be great to have him in center field for another year. Pitcher dropped. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were pretty good at diving for the ball, the shoestring catches, as we call them.
Absolutely. And then I painted that name in front of my locker, FLYHAWK.
Wow.
So then when I opened up the business, I needed the name in the batting cages, so I called it FLYHAWK Batting Cages.
Wow, really?
And people would come up to me all year and ask me my real name. I said, just call me FLYHAWK.
Right.
Because at that time, I wanted the franchise FLYHAWK Batting Cages.
Right, yeah, yeah. Well, your name is really Frederick, right?
Yes.
And then you shortened it with Rick, and then you went to FLYHAWK.
Well, my father's name was Fred, so instead of saying two Freds in the house,
Right.
they
Rick.
called me Rick.
Right, right.
Because my last name, Frederick, is R-I-C, Frederick. So that's where we got Rick from.
Oh.
Frederick is spelled just like the famous movie star, Frederick March. That was my mother's famous movie star in the 50s.
That was her favorite movie star.
I was born in March, so they figured, let's call him Frederick.
Aha. Now, who's this guy? That's you. That's you.
That's Louis Tiant and myself in 1989 at Red Sox Fantasy Camp.
Wow.
I was the only one of two people to get a hit off of Louis. And I went into the locker room after the game. He signed the ball and took a picture with me.
Wow. Speaking of pictures, we also got a picture of you with Ted Williams.
Yes. That first autograph was Ted Williams in that picture of me meeting him at Red Sox Fantasy Camp in 1989. But Bob, I got a better story for you.
Go ahead.
The first time I met Ted Williams was in 1971.
Yep.
I drove up from high school to go to the Red Sox Washington Senators game. He was the manager of the team. I got there 4 hours before the game, and there was no Ted Williams. All the ball players came in from the Red Sox and Senators. 3 hours go by, 2 hours go by, an hour goes by, there's still no Ted Williams. Bob, a yellow cab pulls up, right? Ted Williams gets out of the cab, and guess what he's carrying, Bob? He's carrying a shotgun and a rifle.
Come on, really?
I said, Ted, don't shoot me. I just want your autograph. He hands me the shotgun and rifle. I give him a cover of Sport magazine when he's wearing his Washington Senators uniform.
When he was a manager, was he?
Yes,
manager
the manager, and he signed it. If that happened today, I probably would have been shot in Kenmore Square. So the second time I got Ted Williams' autograph is that picture you had up previously of me in my Red Sox uniform and Ted looking at my scrapbook.
Wow. That's unbelievable. I mean, you've had a complete life, especially with
Ted,
athletes.
but I want to tell you how the scrapbook started.
Okay.
It was my father. My father worked the post office at night. He would
Now, the post office was in where?
Waterbury.
In Waterbury, Connecticut.
He worked the night shift. I couldn't wait till he came home. He always brought the Waterbury paper, the New York Times, or the Boston paper.
Right.
And I would clip articles out, paste them in my scrapbook on Ted Williams. So that's how it all started. If it wasn't for my father, I never would have collected over 250 items on Ted Williams in my 64 year of collection.
That was an impressive collection, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That was an impressive collection. I mean, real impressive collection of Ted Williams.
Every time I saw something, newspaper, flea market.
Life magazine.
The original Life magazine. The library was throwing it out. They were going out of business.
Wow.
And I got that Life magazine. cover. That's the original. And there's only so many around.
Sure.
There's probably maybe only 8 or 10 the original Life magazine covers.
I'll bet, yeah, if that.
If that, yeah.
But it's amazing how you had the wherewithal to collect all these things from Ted.
I
Ted
became
Williams.
obsessed with Ted. He was my hero.
Yep.
And I kept reading about him, and I just kept collecting over the years. Another example, one of my last collections, I live in Singer Island for 8 months out of the year. I went to Sailfish Marina, and I always walked around the restaurant and looked. They had these old tournament photographs. And I looked, and there was Ted Williams back in 1963. He was in a fishing tournament, and they had a picture of Ted and the MC. So I asked the manager if I could have it. She said, no, but I'll take a picture of it and give it to you, and you could keep it for your collection.
You know, there's an island on the other side. Now, you're on the East Coast. Singer Island's on the East Coast of Florida.
Yes.
On the West Coast of Florida is a little island that nobody seems to know about. It's called Usepa Island.
Never heard of it.
Nobody has. Even people that live in Fort Myers area and Marco Island, very few of them, it seemed, knew about this particular island. You go to Pine Island, you can take, the ferry is a private ferry. You have to be invited on the island. People can't just go to the island. In fact, a friend of mine owned a house in Cape Coral, and he had this beautiful boat, and he one day drove over to the island, because it's only a little tiny island, but it has 106 houses on the island. They're all, you have to conform to the building codes. They only allow this particular style of house and only 2 or 3 different colors on the whole island. Yes. And it's a totally private island. So he pulled up with his boat one day, and the guys came with guns. They're not drawn, but they had them in their holsters. Came to no, get out of here. You can't come here. Well, I ended up, I don't even know how I did it, but I ended up meeting the president of the corporation that was in charge of the island, and I got invited on the island. And the island had 1 hotel on it and only 6 units. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It was a very expensive, exclusive hotel, as you can imagine. And they drove around the island. We went around the island in a golf cart. No vehicles on the island except for a fire truck and a police car. That's it. No other vehicles on the island. No other cars.
Yes.
Other than electric carts. They might have had some gas carts, but they're all golf carts. There was nothing else on the island. We drive around the island, and we go to this. They had a little hotel, like I said, 6 unit, and we went in the lobby. And the lobby, there's all this stuff on all these tournament trophies, and it was the what's the big fish down there? The fly fish there, the big topping. The topping. It is the topping museum of I forget what they call it. The Topping Association. It's a nationally recognized location for topping fishermen, and I saw Ted Williams' name on one of the trophies, and with each trophy, it had a sale of a piece of the fin of each of the fish that they caught, the weight and all the specs from the fish.
Ted was a big fisherman.
Oh, I know that.
He lived many years in Key West.
Sears Roebuck had him hooked up.
Yeah. And then you brought up an island. We have Peanut Island, which is behind Singer Island. Peanut Island is famous because in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they built a bunker 100 feet under the island. That's where John F. Kennedy and his wife stayed. And they have tours of it now. They have the presidential emblem. They have the desk, the bed where he slept in. That because Kennedy was living in Palm Beach during the winter months for a week's vacation. Then they built him that bunker in case we went to war with Russia over Cuba.
Well, when the Russian missile crisis happened, they had another, we drove by this, looked like a garage. It's a small building. It said museum, so we went into it, and it was, we see a full-size picture of Bobby Kennedy and Ted Kennedy with this other guy, and I asked who the other guy was. He was the head of the CIA at the time. And come to find out, Yusepa Island was used to plan the Cuban invasion. The Bay of Pigs. The Bay of Pigs invasion. And that got messed up because they had no air support. That's what messed that up. The U.S. government didn't want to show that they were part of it, which they were, but they didn't want to show they were. The CIA was, but the president didn't want to show that they had planned that thing, so they didn't offer them any air support going over there. So these guys went over there without air support, and that's why they were defeated. But that was planned on Yusepa Island, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was pretty interesting. They have their own. They make their own electricity. They have their own water. It's a totally self-contained island. In fact, I don't know which Bush, but one of the Bushes had after his inauguration. That's where he went.
That's where President Bush went.
Yeah. One of the Bushes ended up going there. And I was there twice. I did a show. I did a Bob's Big Adventure there back.
Oh, I missed that show. I want to get the repeat.
Yeah.
We got to have your repeats on more often.
I'm going to have to put that on again. That was a long time ago, man. That had to be 20 years ago. No more.
Yeah.
Or more. A very interesting place. I mean, that Yusepa Island was pretty cool. But Singer Island is also a pretty neat island.
Singer Island got its name after the sewing machine. Remember the ones with the
pedal? Singer sewing machine. Yeah.
So he came down. He discovered the island. He said he'll buy it and he's going to name it Singer Island. My mother still has one of those machines, the crank, and you use the pedal.
You pump the pedal?
Yeah.
Now, how long you been in business on Mesquamaket?
This is my 46th season in Mesquamaket Beach.
Wow. Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, how many months are you down there? 6?
We were open 4 months.
4 months.
4 months in Mesquamaket, and then I live in Singer Island 8 months.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, but lucky enough to do it.
Yeah.
46 years. Before Singer Island, I spent 10 winters in San Diego. I would go.
Oh, that's another rough city, huh?
Yeah.
San Diego.
I always follow the sun.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a wonder you're not full of.
Well, I do have some battle scars.
Yeah. Because San Diego's gorgeous.
Beautiful. 12-month climate, I would pick San Diego. But for the winter climate, it's Palm Beach. The water temperature is warm, ocean, 78 to 82. San Diego water comes from Alaska down.
Right.
It's cold water in the winter.
Oh.
I used to go in.
So wait a minute, you don't like the cold water?
No. The last couple of years, I had to go swimming, body surfing with a wetsuit. In Florida, you don't need a wetsuit.
I know, but the air climate, the air temperature in San Diego is perfect, isn't it?
They're dry climate.
Yeah.
Florida is humid with thunderstorms, a lot of rain.
Right.
But Palm Beach, Singer Island water comes from the Gulf of Stream, and that's a warm body of water that goes along the Florida coast.
And a lot of sharks too.
Yes.
And why is there so many sharks nowadays?
Well, they come in after the bait fish.
Right.
On shore. So I think there's many more people swimming in the ocean now. That could be cause.
Right.
And
that does have something to do with it. Yes.
Are losing their feeding basis, and they're coming in closer to get to the fish.
So they bite a leg here and there.
Right. They just killed somebody in Waikiki, famous surfer.
Yeah, I saw that.
Days ago.
Yeah, exactly. He was an actor too, that
Yeah.
guy.
And he used to surf 30, 40-foot waves.
Wow. Well, the shark bite capital of the world is Florida.
Yes.
And the #1 place is New Smyrna Beach, which is just south of Daytona.
Daytona Beach, yeah.
Right?
Right.
Which is not very far from you.
No, it's about
50 miles?
No, New Smyrna Beach, Daytona Beach, 6 hours.
Oh, what am I thinking of? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're closer to
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, or I was going to say Boca.
Boca's 25 minutes. Fort Lauderdale's 40. Miami is 55 minutes.
Now, when you're driven down to Key West, obviously, right?
Yes, yes.
My favorite drive in the United States.
Uh,
You don't like it?
it was kind of tough for me. A 6 hours drive. We both have knee problems.
Right.
It was tough getting out, and then going over the bridge. I got a little hairy there because.
Which one? The 7 Mile Bridge?
Yeah.
I love that bridge.
No,
Oh my
because
God, it's a beautiful place to take pictures.
I
sunset
know, but
pictures.
you're driving. You're trying to look on both sides. The cars are very close.
Right.
I don't know if I could make that drive down.
Yeah, but the drive from Singer Island. I'm talking about I fly into Miami. It's 162 miles from Miami to
Yeah.
Key West.
Next time I go, I'm going to fly into the Key West airport.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
When I went to Cuba a couple of years ago.
Okay, that's very nice.
I went to Cuba. We flew into Key West, and me and my doctor, my knee doctor, took
Yes.
a private boat, his boat, over to Cuba.
Cuba, yeah.
A research vessel. Him, and 7 other individuals went over there for a week.
Oh, wow, good.
And when we stayed at Hemingway's, well, it wasn't his. It was
Yeah.
Hemingway's Marina. We stayed at. He's very well known in Cuba. The history of him over there is very well known, very well liked in Cuba.
Well, you bring up Cuba. Louis Tiant is from Cuba.
Right.
In 1975, I slept outside of Logan Airport, and I greeted all the Red Sox players. Louis Tiant, and that was his father got a visa to come over to watch him pitch in the '75 World Series, and I shook Louis Tiant's father's hand.
Wow. Do you remember who they lost the 75 World Series was against who? St. Louis?
Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, Cincinnati Reds. What am I thinking of?
Yeah,
67 was St. Louis.
Pete Rose, Johnny Bench.
Pete Rose. I told you I interviewed him. I told you that.
I was at every World Series game in Fenway.
Yeah?
I had box seat tickets. I mean, stay in the room tickets. You tip the usher $20. He let you sit in the cement right next to the box seat.
Right, yeah. You went in the box seat. You were on the stairs.
Stairs. The 6th game, the World Series, I sat right next to Red Auerbach.
Really?
Yep, honest to God.
If you don't know, folks, the former coach of the Celtics, the Herald coach,
Yeah, he was a general manager then.
Oh, was he? Yeah.
And he just traded Paul Westphal. And I said, why you trade Paul Westphal?
Right. And his answer?
He said, we got somebody better, Charlie Scott. Charlie Scott helped him for 1 year, but Paul Westphal had a great career with Phoenix for another 10 years.
Right.
Plus became a great coach in the NBA, Paul Westphal.
Yeah. Well, it's like the trade the Bruins just made. They got rid of their primo
I saw that.
goalie.
For draft choices.
Yeah. And they got rid of a guy that gave up less than 2 goals a game for a guy that, and they picked up a goalie plus a draft choice and another player. But this guy's like 3.9 goals a game. I mean, a little different.
Well, you talk about trades. Trivia question for you. The Red Sox traded Sparky Lyle to the Yankees.
Yep.
Who do we get in return, the Red Sox?
Sparky Lyle, good question. You got me. Who?
Danny Cater.
Oh, yes, my God. Third baseman, right?
First baseman.
First baseman.
Danny
But no,
Cater,
he was originally a third baseman.
He lasted 1 season with us. Sparky Lyle, the Count was his nickname, has 5 great years
Right.
for the Yankees.
Now, Danny Cater, wasn't he originally at Oakland? Didn't he originally play with Oakland?
Could be, but he had a long career with the Yankees.
But I think he was originally from Oakland. He was a third baseman, I think.
And another terrible trade with the Red Sox made. Who do we trade to get George Scott for?
Oh, Cecil Cooper.
We traded Cecil Cooper.
You traded a young Cecil Cooper for an old George Scott.
Right, and he only lasted, George Scott, 3 years. The boomer, Cecil Cooper, has a Hall of Fame career.
He went to Milwaukee, right?
Milwaukee. Played another 15 years with Milwaukee. Terrible trade. Another one. We won't talk about the Babe Ruth trade.
No. But how about the Orioles in 1965? They traded Milt Pappas, a pitcher, for an old 31-year-old Frank Robinson to Cincinnati. He went from Cincinnati to the Orioles, and Milt Pappas went to Cincinnati. 1966, World Series, the lowest scoring World Series by an opponent. The upstart Baltimore Orioles with the old Frank Robinson playing the outfield, and the greatest third baseman that ever played the game, Brooks Robinson, and a variety of other Golden Glovers. I think he had 5 Golden Glovers on that team that year. They were the heavy underdog in that series against,
Orioles,
against the Dodgers, who had, of course,
Sandy Koufax,
the premier
Don
pitcher,
Drysdale.
Don Drysdale, the premier pitchers in baseball.
I think that series or the year before was the first time the World Series was in color television. Back then it was always black and white.
Right.
My family always had a black and white. My next door neighbor got a color TV set.
Oh no, so you were at their house all the time.
It was the first time I watched a baseball game in color TV. It was
Really?
unbelievable.
65 or 66?
It was
Right around there?
Right around there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we went on, the Orioles ended up beating the Dodgers, who were heavily favored in that World Series, in 4 straight games. And one of the pitchers for the Orioles, well, the first pitcher was Dave McNally, second pitcher was Mike Cuellar, third pitcher was a young kid, 20 years old, by the name of Jim Palmer.
Jim Palmer.
He pitched a shutout. Hey, what kind of glove is that? Whose glove is that?
Bob, this is a Willie Mays McGregor special.
Cut it out. That's a real Willie Mays glove?
A 1968. This glove was high school, college, and amateur baseball for me. When I made the high school baseball team as a freshman, my father says, congratulations, I'm going to take you down to the local Beaner sporting goods store and buy you a new glove.
Right.
He said, we're going to have $20 to spend. I looked at 30 gloves, but I wanted this one. This was $25.
Yep.
My father said, okay. But that's the story baseball is. Going to a ball game with your father.
Right.
My father buying me this glove. I'm able to talk to you today about this glove, 1968.
Right.
My father. And then when we talked about the Ted Williams plane, TV stations came down, they interviewed the last person who climbed in the cockpit. He was 12 years old.
Yep.
He said to them, maybe I want to be a pilot someday. That was so heartwarming.
Yeah.
Because
you influenced them.
right. So that's what you need to have fighter pilots to protect the United States, to join the Navy or the Air Force.
So your $1,000 donation certainly helped that cause.
Yes, I like to think so.
Well, you're a good man. More about you. What about your collection? Why did you end up donating your collection to the Waterbury Museum?
Okay, Bob, Father Time is catching up with me. And I wanted this collection to come out of my basement, and I wanted people to see it. So I thought of the Mattituck Museum in Waterbury, Connecticut. I called the director up. Name was Bob Burns. I said, Bob, I have a collection here on Ted Williams. He goes, Ted Williams? I said, the baseball player. He said, okay, what's the Waterbury connection? I said, Bob, I was born and raised in Waterbury, but the kicker here is Ted Williams came to Waterbury for 3 summer seasons to raise money for the Jimmy Fund.
Yep.
So that was the connection with Waterbury. So Bob said, I'll bring it up to the board of directors. Bob called me back a week later saying, the board of directors is willing to send me up to your home and look at it, and if it's worthy of the Mattituck Museum, we would take it. So Bob goes downstairs and looks at it. He was amazed to see the Ted Williams collection. He comes upstairs, we sit down at my dining room table. He says, do you want to sell it to us? I said, Bob, I don't want to sell it. He said, do you want to loan it to us?
Right.
I said, Bob, I don't want to loan it to you. So what do you want? I said, Bob, I want to donate it forever to you museum.
Wow.
And then he says, what do you want in return? I said, Bob, I want 3 things. I want you to give me a letter stating that you will never, never sell any of my collection.
There you go, right.
He's willing to do that.
Right.
I said, Bob, I want to honor my father in the museum with his flag and his war record.
Right,
He
which
said,
you did.
We'll do that.
Right.
And I said, Bob, I want to have a celebration of Ted's career in baseball and his record as a pilot. And that was when you came down on June 23rd. We had the celebration of Ted at the Mattituck Museum.
All right, well, we're going to show some clips of the museum later on in the show. And we're going to end this segment with a picture of you bringing this
in 2017. We talked about it earlier in the show. I brought Ted Williams' plane into my parking lot as a fundraiser. The hangar roof of the plane collapsed during a snowstorm back in 2012-13.
Yep.
And the plane's been outside, rusted. They needed to put it inside.
Yep.
So I made a $1,000 contribution to them. They brought the plane down. 50 to 60 people paid $10 to climb into the cockpit. We took your picture and we donated that money, went to the...
towards restoring the plane.
Yeah, to keep getting a roof for the plane.
Well, I got to thank you for driving all the way up from Westerly. Now that's a big deal in Rhode Island. You know, that's a 52-mile ride. That's a big deal. Thank you for stopping by.
Pleasure having you. So much for coming down. You drove 4 hours to go to Waterbury.
Well, if you're talking about a round trip, it was 5 hours.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you. And folks, we'll be right back on An Hour with Bob.
He's also known as Elvis. He's a great singer, and he's going to sing to us at the event today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Not much, though. Not much. Don't chase this poor guy out of here. He was born in 41. I have a brother that was born in 41.
What's his name? Elvis what?
No.
Elvis Butterly. My brother Brian got a double upstate blast. Butterly, Butters with L-Y. Butter with L-Y.
B-U-T-T-E-R-L-Y?
Yeah.
Got one too.
Thank you. Look at the ring. 67.
Hey folks, we're back on An Hour with Bob, and look who we got here. He hasn't been a guest on my show in probably 20 years, but he's still around. He looks like a kid. Scott Cordischi. How you doing, Scott? Nice to see you.
It's great to be back with you. It has been a long time, folks. It probably has been more than 20 years.
Oh, yeah. It has. But you don't look it. My God, what are you doing?
Can you tell my wife I still look young?
Yeah. You do. I'm not even going to ask you how old you are. What are you doing now? You're at Brown, right?
I am. I'm the manager of broadcasting at Brown University, so I oversee all of our athletic broadcasts, and you know, we have 34,
all sports?
Yeah, we have 34 varsity sports. Most of them are broadcast on ESPN+.
Wow.
So I do the play-by-play for some of them as well still. I do football, I do men's basketball. In the fall, I do things like volleyball and field hockey. I do baseball and softball in the spring. So
where the hell do you find the time to do all of those? Because a lot of them overlap, right?
Sleep is overrated.
So you broadcast on what? WEEI?
So I do a Saturday morning sports talk show on WEEI.
Oh, that's another thing.
Yep,
that's
another
a separate
thing.
entity.
The Brown Athletics broadcasts are on ESPN+. So those are on TV.
Right.
But yeah, the Saturday morning show on EEI from 7 to 9 a.m. I co-host with Nick Coit, who's the sports director at ABC6 here in Providence, and we have a good time talking sports every Saturday morning.
Well, I mean, that's all you've done is sports. I mean, you've done sports ever since you were a kid.
That's it. You know, look, I moved here in 1994. I got hired by WPRO to be the producer for John Rook in the WPRO
He's still around.
He is, yeah. John, I think, works at Dean College, still broadcasts the Providence Friars basketball games as well.
Yeah.
But 1994, PRO hired me, and after about a year, I think John got let go, so I took over as the full-time host of that show.
Right.
And then in 1997, the company that owned WPRO changed one of their other stations. At the time, I think it was WLKW, 790 AM. To an all-sports format.
Right.
It was 790 The Score. So they moved me over from PRO to that station. Right. And I did that till 2008 when the company decided to change formats and we all got blown out.
Right. Well, you were with Gresh back then.
Yeah, I was with Gresh. Brian Morey was a co-host with me for a time. So I did many years by myself as well.
Exactly, yeah. Now, where'd you come from? Where do you hail from?
So I tell people Haverhill, Massachusetts. You've heard of Haverhill, right?
Of course.
Okay. Have you ever heard of a town called Groveland?
Yes, actually I did. Okay. I do.
It's right next to Haverhill, but it's a small bedroom community, 4,000 or 5,000 people. I grew up in Groveland, Mass. I went to a high school. It was a regional high school called Pentucket in West Newbury, Massachusetts. It was Groveland, West Newbury, Merrimack all went to the same high school.
Right.
People ask me all the time, where you're from? Groveland, Massachusetts. Never heard of it.
Right.
Haverhill.
Yeah. Haverhill. Well, I used to drive to Vermont all the time, way up in northern Vermont.
Yeah.
And I'd take all different angles, all different ways to go up to Vermont and New Hampshire. And I'd be in all those small towns. In fact, I got a speeding ticket one time in was it Grafton, Massachusetts? And people said, "What the hell are you doing in Grafton, Massachusetts?" I said, "I don't know. I just like to drive." Like I would pick a route and I would drive the route to the end of the route.
How fast were you going when you got the ticket?
Too fast. Probably it had to be more than 10 over.
Yeah,
right?
they
Because they usually
give you
don't
leeway.
stop you with,
That's
if
right.
you're under 10 over, right?
That's right.
But I mapped out when my kids were small, I would take an area. Well, first it started in Rhode Island. We would pick a route and we'd drive that whole route.
Yeah.
And like Route 123,
Sure.
it goes from 146 and it goes all the way to Situate, Massachusetts, right to Hull, Massachusetts. And every Route 2, same thing, all those routes. Like a lot of people, especially young people, don't know that all even number routes run east to west and all odd number routes run north to south.
Yeah, that's good. Good information.
It is.
Speaking of speeding tickets, so when I first got hired down here in '94, for the first month before I found my first apartment, I was commuting back and forth between Groveland and East Providence.
Now, where'd you have to go? 146?
So I would take 95 north to 128 to 93 to 495. And
Oh
then
my
I'd
God.
get off in Bradford, Massachusetts, and work my way to Groveland.
Bradford, yeah. Well, what's
But-
the route when you get off? What route was it when you get off?
So 125 in Bradford.
Okay.
Yeah, the Ward Hill Connector.
Yep.
So I got a speeding ticket coming home from doing my show on WPRO.
Was it in Rhode Island or Mass?
It was in Mass. It was like in Canton, Mass on 95 North, right before it meets 128. And so I contested it. And I went in front of the judge, and it was, I think, Dedham, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, "Mr. Cordischi." I said, "Yes, Judge." She said, "Are you an airline pilot?"
Oh, no.
I said, "No, Judge, I'm not." "Why?" She said, "Well, why are you flying on my highways?"
Really?
I had nothing to say.
Oh, you were
I just
in
started
trouble.
laughing. I said, "That's a great one, Judge."
You were in trouble.
Guilty as charged.
How much did it cost you?
I don't remember.
That sounds like a good speeding ticket. You must have been doing a little faster than 10 miles
I was
over.
probably pushing 80, probably somewhere up
Something
in the high
like that.
70s, 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I've had my share of speeding tickets over the decades.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sport?
As a fan to watch or
Yeah.
to broadcast, because those are two different questions.
Okay, to watch.
To watch, it's football.
Right.
I love the NFL.
Yeah,
To me, nothing beats Sundays in the fall.
Oh,
when
yeah.
You're on your couch and you're watching the Patriots and the National Football League. So
Right.
as a fan, I love that. As a broadcaster, I would say football and basketball
I knew you were
are
gonna say
a tie
bas- yeah.
for me. I love both of them equally.
Yeah. What did you think of the Celtics this year?
What a season. I mean, they were the best team in the NBA, weren't they?
Oh, well, they outclassed it. Yeah,
They did.
absolutely.
And you know what? I forget who said this on ABC, but they said, who should be the MVP of the NBA Finals? And somebody said, Brad Stevens. And they're right. He put
You know who said
together
that to
a
me?
Great team.
You know who said that to me
that?
last week and who I watched the game with? Joe Rocco.
Oh, is that right? He's
he said,
right.
He said that to me. And he said if it wasn't him, it was going to be the kid that ended up winning anyway.
Well, Jaylen Brown.
Yeah. And I'm glad he got it because I think the other guy is too,
Tatum?
Jason, I think he's too inconsistent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look,
He's a inconsistent superstar. One game he's great, the next game he stinks.
yeah, I think Tatum may be more offensively skilled than Jaylen Brown, but I think
Not defense.
Brown is a better defender. You're right.
Oh, absolutely.
And Brown has it here, like
Right,
inside
right.
the check. He's a leader,
Exactly.
and that's why I think he deserves.
And again, Jason Tatum is one game he'll act like a leader. The next game he acts like a lug.
Yeah.
He's not all there, not 100%.
18 world championships. My son went to the championship parade with a bunch of his friends.
Really?
And they had a great time. And you ever been to a championship parade, Bob?
No.
I went to two of the Celtics parades in the 80s when I was young. I went to the 1981 Celtics championship parade and the 1986 championship parade.
Yep.
When you're young going to something like that, it's
Yeah.
a ball. It's a lot.
Yeah. But when you're old and you got bad knees,
Yeah, that's right. You'll watch it on TV.
I don't want to walk around with that crowd. I don't want to fight. Well, too much walking, first of all, to find the spot. I would have loved to go there. There was 1 million people there.
You know what? There was close to 2 million people.
Really?
It was unbelievable, the crowd. Yeah, what a crowd. And somebody posted on social media, they posted a picture and video of the Denver Nuggets championship parade a year ago in Denver
Right.
and the Celtics championship
Oh,
parade.
gotta be day and night.
And day. There was hardly anybody on the streets of Denver. The streets of Boston were packed. And that's because, as you know, Boston, New England, this is such
Well, they
a
got
rabid
5
sports league.
states to choose from
Yeah,
the
But
supporters.
we love our pro sports teams too.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
we live and die by their results.
Absolutely. Well, when you add up all the different championships they have in hockey, football, baseball, basketball, we probably have more than anybody.
It's pretty impressive, yeah. Pretty impressive.
I mean, that put us one ahead of LA for basketball, right?
Yep. So 18 for the Celtics, 17 for the Lakers. The Patriots, of course, 6, which that's tied for most in the National Football League. The Red Sox, I don't know how many they've got. You know, they won a bunch back in the early 1900s when you and I went around.
Yeah, before 1906.
Before the long drought.
Yeah, before 1906, right?
Yeah. No, well, before I think 1918 was like, or 1917 was
1918,
like,
I'm sorry, yeah.
Was like the last one that they won. And then, of course, that long drought until 2004. But, and then the Bruins, too. You know, the Bruins haven't won a lot lately. 2011 was their last cup. But, yeah, we've been
Speaking of the
lucky.
Bruins, what do you think of that trade they just made?
Linus Ullmark, I think it was a trade they had to make, Bob.
Really?
Yeah, you know, you had 2 great goaltenders.
That's
I think
true. That's true. That's true.
Swayman demonstrated in the postseason that he's clearly the number 1.
Really?
He's younger.
Right.
He's cheaper at the moment, but they're going to have to pay him.
Oh,
pretty
they're going to have
soon.
to pay him big money now.
And Ullmark's got 1 year left at $5 million. They knew that was a tradable asset for them. They get rid of the $5 million contract.
Right.
They get something back. They got a first-round pick. They got another goalie who I'm not crazy about.
no,
And then they
he
got a
averages
fourth,
almost 4 goals a
yeah,
game.
yeah, and they got a 4th-line center too. So
And they got a first-round pick,
yeah,
right?
move they had to make. Yeah, 25th pick in the NHL draft.
Yeah, so that's not a bad deal. What do you think of the Patriots? What do you think they're going to do this year?
I think, unfortunately, we're in for another lean season. You know, you know, there's hope, I think, when you draft a quarterback, number 3 overall, Drake
Right.
May. I think we have hope for the future. But I think short term, I can't see this team winning a lot of games.
And on
this year.
top of it, they still don't have a strong wide receiver core.
They still don't have a number 1. You know, they've added a lot of bodies. It looks like they've got some decent guys at
Right.
wide receiver, but they
Right.
still don't have the true number 1. And the problem is you need that true number 1 for defenses to focus on because it lets those other guys be better.
Right, loosens everybody up
Yeah,
because they got to double team them. They
That's
got to
right.
double team the good
That's
one.
right.
That they don't have a Randy Moss. They don't have a guy like that.
No.
In fact, that's been the problem for several years.
Yeah, and they don't have a left tackle right now either, which is a problem.
And I didn't understand why they didn't trade for a left tackle in the second round.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're still going to do something there, but the offensive line is still, I think,
Weak.
a little shaky.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And the left tackle, isn't he the most important?
For a right-handed quarterback, they say that's the most important position on the offensive line. Just
That's
ask
the guy
Mac Jones.
behind you. That's
Yeah.
to protect you from the blind side,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And people that don't know football don't understand that, how
You
important
know,
that
we
guy
were
is.
spoiled with the Patriots, though. When you look at what Brady and Belichick gave us, I mean, from 2001 until just a few years ago,
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, they were traditionally at the top of the league every single year. And so if we have to go through a few lean years, so be it. I think we have to be thankful with what we witnessed. I don't know if we'll ever witness anything like that again.
No, it would
But-
be unusual, that's
Yeah.
for sure. I just see on YouTube this whole like a collection of the different players. Edelman making some great catches, one right after the other, and the tight end
Gronkowski.
Gronkowski making and not only catches but catching the ball and dragging people with him. They're trying to stop him. It's unbelievable. He's dragging him 20 yards.
I mean, he's a special talent. I mean, if he's not the greatest tight end to ever play in the NFL, he's top 3.
Right.
I mean, guys like that, guys like Tom Brady don't come around too often. Edelman, I mean, he was a favorite of mine because he's that classic overachiever. You know, that little guy that was a quarterback in college. They turned him to wide receiver. And
Short
he got every
guy.
ounce out of his ability, in my opinion.
Right, yeah, it was amazing because he tried. He was a worker. The guy always give you 100% every
you know
single
what?
game.
And Bob, that's what New England sports fans love, guys like that.
Right.
You know, New England sports fans, yeah, we want you to win, but we want to know you're putting in the effort. Right?
Exactly. Every game.
That's right. If we know you're putting in the effort, we can live with that.
Exactly.
If we feel like you're not putting in the effort, look out. You're in
You
trouble.
can, if you're putting in the effort, even if you make a mistake, like you drop a ball or whatever, they don't get down on you.
That's
It's
right.
when these guys that don't put in the effort that screw up.
That's right.
That people lose it with them.
Yep.
Now, in baseball, what do you think the Red Sox are what now? 7 games over 500,
Yeah,
right?
you know, they're in
Which surprised me because they looked like they were really stinking the house out.
Bob, they're an interesting case because I think coming into the season, I think a lot of people, myself included, we didn't think that the Sox really had much of a chance to do anything.
I figured they'd be in a cellar.
Yeah, and here they are. Their starting pitching's been very good.
Right.
And in addition to that, you know,
The hitting's coming on.
The hitting's been good, but the running Red Sox, how about the way they steal bases? Like
That's
Jaron
not-
Duran
that's
gets on
not-
base, and he's.
That's not a Red Sox. Historically,
That's right.
Tommy Harper was the only one that I can think of that used to steal bases for the Red Sox, and he was a transplant
Yeah.
from a couple other teams.
That's right. But I think now, going into the season, I thought for sure at the trade deadline they'd trade like Kenley Jansen, their closer. I said, they'll trade him last year of his contract. There's a team that'll be looking for a good closer. Now I think just the opposite. I think this team has a chance to be a wild card team. Right now, they're the final wild card team in the American League. So I think they have to invest. I think they have to go out and find a couple of players, a couple of veterans to try to add to this team, see if they can be a playoff team.
Exactly. Who do you think is the play? Who do you think's going to win it in the East?
Well, it's hard to not say the Yankees right now. You know, they just got Cole back, and I know he got shelled the other night. But I mean, you look at that lineup with Soto and Judge and the way they're hitting the baseball, and I think the Yankees are the best team in the East. I think Baltimore is still very good.
That's my team.
Yeah.
the Orioles.
Oh, you like the Orioles?
Always been an Oriole.
Are you
fan.
from Baltimore?
No, I'm from Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
You just like the Orioles. huh?
I've always been a fan. I coached baseball for 21 years,
Yeah.
and I've always been a fan of pitching and defense.
Yeah.
And when they had, they had 4 20-game winners on the same staff twice, the Baltimore Orioles. They had the most Golden Glovers on the same field at the same time. Look what they did to the Dodgers in 1966 World Series.
Yeah.
Heavily favored Dodgers with Don Drysdale and Sandy Koufax. They beat them in 4 straight with an upstart team, a young team.
So if you're an Oriole fan, you obviously love the late Earl Weaver, right?
Oh, I met him several times.
As did I. Have you ever seen the video of him when they had the umpires mic'd up? For the segment?
When he fights with the umpires?
He goes back and
That's
forth
the
with
best.
the first base umpire. It is one of the funniest videos. If you're a sports fan or a baseball fan, you have to see that video. If you probably YouTube it or Google it, you'll find it somewhere on the web.
You can find it, yeah.
Oh my God, the exchange between him and the first base umpire is priceless. You don't see that in baseball today. I mean, he was old school.
No, he got thrown out more than anybody, I think, in baseball.
absolutely.
Oh, I met him. I interviewed him. I went to his center field. There's all his plants in the center field, his tomato plants and stuff. I mean, I had a long. In fact, and who won? I love to tell this, and a lot of people don't get it. So if you don't get it, I can understand it. Who was the MVP of the 1983 World Series?
1983 World Series. Who won the 1983 World Series? Was it
Baltimore.
They did?
Yeah.
Because they lost in '79 to the Pirates. I remember that.
Yeah.
So who was the MVP? I don't know.
You won't get
was
it.
it
Most
Jim
people
Palmer?
don't get
I don't
it.
know.
I got his glove.
Who?
He gave me his glove, signed it to me. He was the MVP. I'm the MVP of the 1983 World Series to Bob Venturini.
Who was it?
What the hell's his name now? Rick Dempsey.
Rick Dempsey. Oh, the catcher.
Yeah.
What a character he was.
Yeah. Oh,
He
in
was
Boston.
the
The thing in Boston.
The human rain delay.
Yeah, exactly.
When there was a rain delay, he'd get out there and he'd put a pillow in his shirt. He'd imitate Babe Ruth and go
And run around the
top,
bases.
sliding on his belly.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Run backwards, run the reverse.
Again, you don't see that today in sports.
Right.
Characters like that.
Exactly. Like long before your time, I saw Jim Pearsall play.
Yeah.
And he was as nutty as they come.
Yeah.
He ran the bases the wrong way one time. He climbed the flagpole in center field. I mean, crazy stuff. I mean, but he was kind of off his rocker, I think, that guy.
Yeah.
But years ago, we had some talented and nutty players than today.
Characters, absolutely.
It's all about the money now.
Well, the other thing, too, is like a lot of times when those guys played back in the 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, a lot of those guys had off-season jobs because they weren't making the money
They're
in pro
making
sports
chump change.
that they make today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember when Kyle Yastrzemski, I think it was 68, after he was the MVP in 67, right?
Yep.
68. I think he got his new contract was $365,000.
Yeah. Think about that.
That's like a week's pay to these guys
That's
now
right.
that are half as talented.
That's right. Yeah, it's a different ball game today.
I remember going to a Hall of Fame fantasy camp. Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Gaylord Perry, Ferguson Jenkins, Kyle Yastrzemski, Tony Oliva, Rod Carew. I mean, all those guys.
Where was that?
That was in Fort Myers.
Bob, your whole life is a fantasy camp.
Yeah.
That's a line from Seinfeld.
But and yeah.
Kramer went to fantasy camp.
Yeah. Well, I was the videographer of the event. You know, I was there the whole week, and I'm interviewing Frank Robinson, my favorite player.
Yeah.
And I'm interviewing him. I set up, and somebody pointed this out to me a couple of weeks ago. Again, I forgot all about it. It was my cameraman. We go down there, and I see Frank right away, but I didn't approach him initially. And I'm watching him, interact with the fans. Now these guys are paying, I think it was like $3,800 a piece to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my favorite player. My brother was a big Red Sox fan and a Kyle Yastrzemski fan, who I couldn't stand.
Yeah.
And we used to go back and forth about who's the better player. Well, Frank Robinson's statistics prove it out. Frank Robinson was a better ball player. Besides Kyle Yastrzemski.
Yaz was the last guy to win the Triple Crown.
I know it.
Right?
But Frank Robinson was the last guy, the only guy that won the MVP in both leagues.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was an old 31 when the Red Sox got him for Mo Drabowski. They made, I'm sorry, not Mo Drabowski, Pappas, Milt Pappas, with Cincinnati. They made that trade in '65. They got him. Well, anyway, I'm starting an interview with him, and I said, I got to tell you, you're an asshole. He goes, what? Oh, I don't think I can say that. He says, what? You're calling me an asshole? I said, yeah. I said, the way you're treating these fans, I mean, I'm shocked. I says, you're my idol. And I said, you're acting like such a jerk to these people. And he goes, well, I just coming out of surgery. I just had hip surgery. I said, I've had knee surgery. You think I'm a jerk? I says, you're here. You got paid to be here.
Yeah.
And you're acting like that with these people. I says, I'm very disappointed. Do you know, after that, we were best of friends the whole week.
Is that right?
And that was the first day.
You know what? Sometimes guys, stars like that, need somebody to tell them like it is. Because everybody kisses their ass.
Right.
But when somebody tells them the truth, they respect it.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He obviously did.
Yeah. Like you remember Rick Pitino, when Rick Pitino was coaching
Yeah,
the Celtics
yeah.
and then Kentucky. So one of his closest friends was a guy by the name of Jersey Red. You remember that guy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Ken Ford's his name. Jersey Red was Rick Pitino's chef at his fraternity when Pitino was a student athlete at UMass.
Wow.
And they became the closest of friends because Pitino wanted to quit the team and transfer from UMass, and Jersey Red went and told his coach, Jack Lehman, he said, don't let this kid quit, and he stayed, and they were lifelong friends. But Jersey Red was that same type of guy to Rick Pitino. He would tell him where the dog died, and Pitino appreciated that.
All right. Well, thanks for coming by. I'm going to have you back because I need more time with you.
Well, let's do it before 20 years from now.
All right.
I mean, I might not even be alive in 20 years, Bob.
No, I might not be alive. You got much more time to go than me, kid.
Bob, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you came, man.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And folks, I'm glad you're watching An Hour with Bob, and thank you for spending the time with us. Until next time. See ya.